But I want to welcome you to the West Point Society of Northern Nevada's 2022 Founders Day celebration. My name is Tim Lucas. I'm the president of the West Point Society for Life. And I say that somewhat facetiously, but I enjoy the job, and I guess I will continue to serve at the board in your pleasure. This night would not be possible without the Herculean efforts of Bill Conrad. So please recognize him. Larry Geis, who's in the background, has been our secretary for many years and keeps us straight. And other board members. Mike is here, Barry's here, and I think that's, and Ed Jones. Sorry, Ed. Ed is our treasurer who actually keeps us straight and lets us know we can have events. But they have done great efforts. And I know the pandemic has stretched us at the seams. We had a small abbreviated one in 20 as it was kicking over. And that's really the last time we've had a collective get together. We did the Army Navy game, somewhat, but it's been a struggle. And I understand everybody's concern, and I understand the respect that everybody has for their personal feelings about how you deal with this and whom you have at home and who you're the caregivers for. And well, at times it takes us to a breaking point and we may seem threadbare. It's our empathy for one another. It's the caring about what happens to us as a whole and building something better for the future. And I think that notwithstanding all the histrionics and notwithstanding the socializing and sensationalism in the media that you see, I think as a core, we still care about one another. We still want the right things to do. And so we start this event tonight along the same vein. Clearly, you see, this is not your traditional Founders Day format. We've been wrestling with this for many years. We've had the very formalistic ones, and our participation was dropping, as not just our society, but across AOG, of getting us together to celebrate what is now our 220th anniversary of the founding of our academy and one of the great institutions of our country. So we wanted to embark upon a fresh approach. Today, we decided to go with something that was very informal. Number one, trying to plan this in December and January seemed impossible. When things started to open up and we had greater acceptance of people would come, it seemed like a natural place that eat, drink, and share fellowship together. And so we ended up here. I hope you like this event. I hope you like kind of the format and the casual nature of it. We'll follow up with a Survey Monkey to tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, what you would want to see different. We have classes here from 1960 to 2008. So the 60 will say the Corps has. In 2008, I'm sure Jeff will say, yeah, the Corps has. It's only been 12 years ago. We all like to say that. But one thing that we can be proud of where the Corps is. You only need to look at the accolades that the cadets today have accomplished for themselves. They've accomplished it upon a foundation that we helped set. And I'm proud to be a part of that foundation, as should you all. What I'd like to do now, because we're a small enough event and we're being recorded, is just briefly to introduce yourselves or somebody at your table, if you would, as you go along, because it has been so long. We didn't quite have all our name tags and everything. So, we're working some things of getting back to our first event after a couple of years. But I think it would be nice to know, at least for those grads who are at the table, and I'll put you on the spot. It's kind of like Rotary. Any of you are Rotarians, it's like you stand up. Yes, the red badge and my visitors are. So every one of you is going to have a table commander, and maybe introduce yourselves and you get to know it. So, I'd like to start in the back of the room, and thank you, Phil Thielander, for inviting Mike Scott to introduce your table. Do you need a mic? If you have a command voice, you should not need a mic.
I have come up again and say hello. So back when the Romans were in charge of things. So I introduced myself. I'm going to pass around the table and let everybody do it themselves. I'm going to go this way and go to a joint service.
Thank you very much. My name is Lisa Robertson. I'm here with my husband, Mark Robertson. And we have a daughter who graduated from the Air Force Academy in the class of 2020, the first year that many kids graduated without their parents at graduation. So we love Bill Conrad. He has always reached out for us, invited us to these events. And so we are grateful that we try to support all Academy activities. And that's why we're here this evening. Thank you so much for welcoming us.
Fred Harvey, class of 75, and I'm delighted to be here.
Maggie T. Lander, the spousal unit of Phil T. Lander, class of 1980.
Wow, she stole my thunder. That was terrible. Anyway, Phil T. Lander taught JRTC in Galena for about 6 years, taught ROTC at UNR for probably about 5 years, and currently unemployed, just kind of traveling around. But I'm also a field force rep, so if you have any students in high school that are interested in going into the academies, regardless, have them get a hold of me.
Yes, I'm Ed Jones, class of 1961. I'm one of two members of our society that spent their service time in the Air Force. The other one is Larry Geis, who was also in the Air Force. I've been here in Reno for almost 17 years now, and have been treasurer of the society almost the entire time. I will pass this around and let the other members of my table introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Karen Conrad. I am the spouse of Bill Conrad, who is class of 1980. I also am the parent of two girls, class of 2022 and one of 2024. Oh, and a son of class of 2009 of Coast Guard Academy. So I am all in with military.
I'm Debbie DeRoos, and this is my husband Bob, and our son is Sam. Hopefully he'll pop up on the screen. I don't know if the girls are too. Sometime tonight. He's a 2023. Hopefully we'll graduate in 2023. Fingers crossed. We could use all your prayers. About it. So pass it on to the. Hi, I got elected as table commander by two of my
82 grads that are sitting at my table. That was the year I was born, so I'm going to make them feel a little old since I got elected, okay? But we have Rui and John, 82, as well as their spouses. I'm Captain Carr. I'm still currently in the reserves as a Malo.
Commander Stephen Schumacher, United States Naval Academy. All right. The token Navy guy on the West Point Society. Thank you very much for allowing me to stay. And I'm sitting at the table with my support person, Cheryl, and with Tim's support person, Claudia. And we have, I did the information officer program for 26 years for Navy, and it was so rewarding to come across the Robertsons that reminded me that I had spoken with their daughter and so many others. The families and the young men and women I had a chance to meet over those years was just absolutely tremendous. It was just a real rewarding experience. And we've got a new one here that's coming in from Reno High School.
I'm Josh Ketchum, class of 78, and my son just got his admission papers, but he's trying to decide between West Point and the Air Force. Well, wait a minute. Being the class of 78, I've already been to West Point. I haven't been to Air Force yet, and it's close to drive. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, I'll let Leo introduce himself. Thank you very much.
That was a bad idea. I often get the microphone taken away from me. So, my name is Leo Ketchum. I'm the Cadet Brigade Commander for JRTC schools in Washington County School District. I also just recently received my admissions papers to West Point Military Academy. So I'm also waiting for Air Force, but I will more than likely accept my West Point appointment. I will pass to the next table.
Hi, my name is Jerry Werner. I'm class of 64. I've been a past president in Salt Lake a long time ago. I currently major in tennis and golf. On my table, Larry Geist, who's, the treasurer or the secretary? And his lovely wife is sitting next to him. And I'm going to let these people, this lady runs a pizza parlor and a film company. So go ahead and tell us more.
My name is Michelle Irwin. I'm class of 96. I was medically discharged, served my country for 5 years, love my country. I'm just really happy to be here, and I'm with my very good friend Sally Nash, and I would like to introduce her.
I didn't think I'd have to stand up and say anything. But Michelle and I met actually only a few weeks ago at Flat Earth. It was the exact day they had sent out a text saying, "Yay, back open for eat-in dining." And Michelle comes up to the table and says, "Can I help you?" And we chatted for a few minutes, and she talked about West Point. And I was one of those kids in the 50s who wanted to go to West Point. So we found a common era to talk about. And since then, I've helped her with other things, and she's helped me with things. And I think every single one of you who have served, regardless in what capacity, are absolutely perfectly wonderful.
Hello, my name is Ron Lewis, and I'm really pleased that my wife is here this evening. We have a unique opportunity to be on the faculty at the Military Academy. And I was pleased to be the Armor Branch representative in 3 years as instructor. That's correct. Combat Arm of Decision. Well, in that, it's a great opportunity our military affiliations throughout the other academies, and the services are phenomenal. And I'm joined tonight by my beautiful wife, Denise.
Yeah. Hi, this is Al Hogue. New to Nevada. We're refugees from the People's Republic of California. I'm here with my lovely bride, Becky. We're parents of a 2021 grad, and my son-in-law is a 2010 grad. So, anyway, we just returned from West Point this weekend. The core's strong, kids there are great, and everything's working as we would expect it.
Well, I'm Mike Hannafin. I'm the class of 1986, and I'm probably the newest retiree, as I'm just retiring as we speak from the National Guard. So after 36 years of service, almost 35 in a butt for those West Pointers.
I got stories.
Hey, Chuck Swanson, class of 67. I retired after 20 years. My wife beat me. She retired at 27 as an Army nurse colonel. That's not it. My daughter is at the 30-year point, got promoted to 2-star general. Beat that, scum.
Well, I definitely can't beat that. I'm an invited guest. My grandfather was in the French Army, and then from Indiana, he went over when World War I started. He was 16 years old. He just lied about his age. And then when the American Army came over, he joined the American Army. He was awarded the French Croix de Guerre and the Bronze Star for Valor. And then my father was in the Army Air Corps. And he came up with the idea to strip paint off the airplanes and allow them to go across the English Channel. But the star of my Army service was my mother, who was an Army nurse. And so she was just an incredible person. My brother, though, was a Navy commander and commanded the Antarctic Squadron for 3 years. He was also inducted into Tomeko Hall of Fame for the Navy for his work on the new implementation of sub-identification. I had to be a patriot because my mother was also born on the 4th of July. And so every year we would go out back, raise the flag, and set off a cannon for her and wake her and my dad up. So thank you for allowing to be here with you all tonight.
I got to say something. We're working on Tim. He's a candidate for 16th Assembly District. Senate, 16th Senate. I'm bad. But anyway, good guy. Just wanted to say. Thanks for coming. Michelle.
Well, I have the privilege of being with Tim. We got married in October of last year. Thank you. I'm a nurse. I think he got me just to be a nurse for him and a campaign manager. But so I'm from the East Coast, born and raised in Virginia, multi-generational Smith from Virginia, and my great-grandfather was a sergeant in the Civil War. So I appreciate everything you guys do for us to protect. Thank you.
Hi, Steve Brilliant and my wife, Juan May. We're plebe parents, so we appreciate we're able to talk to you upper class people. Because apparently that's not allowed at West Point. So my son's a plebe. He might, if he figures out how to get on tonight, we may see him. I work at the VA right now. I came down here from the Northwest to join the VA, and I've been working there since 2007. My wife works there part-time as well. So thank you for having us. It's nice to meet all of you.
Hey everybody, Jeff Johnson. I'm the 08 guy, which makes me the youngest grad. So I guess the Corps has, and it's great to be here.
I'm Barry Peterson, and I'm kind of a recluse. I really, I thank Bill, Tim, all the board members, because I've been living under a rock for a few years. But the pandemic and Ukraine thing just made me, I had to come out and see everybody. I'm really, really happy to be here with y'all. Classmates with Mike Hannafin, but I'm a long way from retirement. Long way. So way to go, Mike. 86. And work at the VA. Also, Dr. Brilliant. So it's great to be here, and it really touches me to be here tonight. I don't know why, but something special about getting together again. It's been a long time. It's good to see everybody. Thank you.
Bill is changing our scenario here slightly. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody wasn't paying attention. I was watching the whole room. But then again, I can see the whole room. No, thank you all. And that's just kind of a non-traditional way for us to get a chance to meet one another, to know one another from face, because hopefully it's not the Army-Navy game or next year before we see you again. But at least we're going to be able to have that memory in our minds. Feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to contact anybody on the board. If you come into town, I'm not saying I'd put all of you up all of the time, but we have a fairly big house. We have remodel projects going. Somebody's got their phone very close and getting feedback. We won't say who. There. Okay, and we have 3, 4 cadets up there. Cadets, we'd ask you to stop by. We ran late. Oh, you look beautiful. Yeah, look at that. Can you see us? Check it out. Okay, you can all say hello. You can unmute and say hello to us all.
Hi, everyone. How you guys doing?
Hi to Mom and Dad. They are here.
Good to see you, Sam. You too, Eric.
Cool. Well, we'll have a little Q&A if you can hang on a little bit. You may learn a little bit about Ukraine from, I don't know if you say Colonel, Doctor, Colonel retired. Pete, if you can turn on your video, I'll start your intro so they can see you at the same time. There you go. All right. So I would have Pete out, but he was just here for a skiing vacation, and we had some wine together. I've known him for many times. Yes, I will cover the classmates who were in the audience, but Peter R Monsoor, he has his PhD from Ohio State University in military history, MA from, I should say, the Ohio State University in history in '92. But his greatest accomplishment was his West Point graduation in 1982 as #1 in his class. And I'll use this one. Dr. Mansoor is currently the General Raymond E. Mason Jr. Chair of Military History at The Ohio State University, has been there since 2008. He has served in the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, Brave Rifles. I'll get to that in a moment. Probably his proudest accomplishment. He went with the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. Okay, he was part of the Lucky 16. In Germany, Fort Irwin, commanded the 1st Squadron, 10th Cav of the Buffalo Soldiers, Fort Hood, the G3 of the 4th Infantry Division. He was on the Joint Staff as Special Assistant to the Director of Strategic Plans during the period of the Bosnian Peace Support, Operation Desert Fox, and the Kosovo conflict. Colonel Mansoor then commanded the 1st Brigade, 1st Armored Division from 2003 to 2005, including 13 months of combat in Iraq, from July 2003 to 2004, service for which his brigade was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation for Collective Valor in Combat. He's written a book about his experiences there called The Baghdad at Sunrise, a Brigade Commander's War in Iraq. An excellent read, and it's that next level up from a brigade commander in the tactical decisions, and I recommend it highly to you all. After relinquishing command, Colonel Mansoor resided at the Council on Foreign Relations in New York as a senior military fellow. He then served as the founding director of the U.S. Army Marine Corps Counterinsurgency Center at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, where he helped to edit and rewrite the Counterinsurgency Field Manual, which was used to reshape the conduct of the Iraq War. In the fall of 2006, he also served on the Joint Chiefs of Staff Council of Colonels that re-examined the strategy for the war. He finished his military service as executive officer to General David Petraeus, the commanding general of the multinational force Iraq during the period of the surge, 2007 to 8. He wrote a book, which is also a very good read, called The Surge, My Journey with General David Petraeus and Remaking of the Iraqi War. Also in the early 90s, it's a preview to his and prelude to his current position. He taught military history of the United States Military Academy. So I'm not sure if anybody in here may have had him as a P. I'd love to know what he was like. Really. I visited him as a P, and he seemed really a nice guy, but, our society should know. He also wrote a book while he happened to be a P called The GI Offensive in Europe, The Triumph of the American Infantry Divisions, 1941 to 44. And that won the Society of Military History Distinguished Book Award and the Army Historical Society Distinguished Book Award back in 2000. Currently, right now, Pete is also the president of the Society of Military History. Well, I call him Pete. Dr. Mansoor is too formal. It's not going to happen. I think his greatest claim to fame is that he was my first executive officer when I was a second lieutenant. So he is my Dragon 5 to me. Without further ado, I should say, I had asked, because he can speak on a very broad range of topics. And what I did ask him to do is to kind of bring it down, because Dr. Mansoor is a frequent analyst on for different media outlets. You may see him on there and talking about it. I find his analysis succinct. Sometimes we do disagree, but PhD, I don't. And so I asked him to talk about what the current situation was like in the Ukraine. And with that, Dr. Mansoor, please take over.
Oh, thank you, Tim. An overly lengthy and kind introduction. I will say to the group here that my daughter and her family are moving to Reno. And so I will undoubtedly see you in person sometime, as our only grandchildren now will be in your city, which means we will be there a lot inhabiting Tim's basement. Someone passed me a beer, by the way. I hear that's a brewery there. Nice. So I'm going to share some slides with you and talk about the situation in Ukraine, and I'd be happy to take questions after, because I'm sure this is a topic that you've heard a lot about. You may be glued to the television. But I'm going to talk a little bit, because I'm a historian, talk a little bit about the history surrounding this. And we'll begin with a description of Ukraine, which is a country that's 1/3 as large again as Iraq, and about 1/3 as populous again as Iraq.
Pete, can you put it on a slideshow?
I can, yes. Oh, let me see if I can hide these meeting controls as well. But that is not working. All right, so never mind.
It's coming up perfect on this end.
Okay. So as much difficulty as we had stabilizing Iraq, given the robust force structure we had there, it's no surprise that Russia is having difficulties in Ukraine. It's a
a country that's 233,000 square miles. Like I said, about 1/3 again as large as Iraq. 43 million people versus only 28 million in Iraq. And you can see what it looks like here if stretched, superimposed on a map of the United States. What the Russians are trying to do is basically start in New York and fight their way to Chicago. And to do that with an army of only 200,000 people, which hasn't yet gained and maintained air superiority over the skies of Ukraine. So Ukraine is not going to be easy to conquer. And my prediction is it won't be conquered. Let's talk about some history, because Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, they all share the same history, and it goes back to the 10th century or so with the Kievan Rus, which was a superpower of its day. You could see it there in comparison with the Byzantine Empire. It was every bit as big and powerful as its neighbor to the south. Russia and Belarus both get their name from the Kievan Rus. And of course, Kiev, the capital city of Ukraine, traces its name from that as well. This entity disappeared in the 13th century when the Mongols overran it. But the various entities around that region today still look back on this golden age of Kievan superpower as their past and perhaps as their destiny. In Putin's view, Ukraine has always been an inseparable part of the Russian Empire. It's an ahistorical view of the region, but it's one that he has clung to, and he completely elides and overlooks all of the other powers that have reigned over Ukrainian lands throughout history: the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Republic of Genoa, the Crimean Khanate, the Cossack Hetmanate, and the Ottoman and Austro-Hungarian empires, all ruled over portions of the Kievan Rus, or what became of it over time. But most importantly, the Ukrainians don't believe that they're Russian. Soviet policies in the 20th century, in 1933, 32 and 33, precipitated a great famine in Ukraine, which killed several million people. The Germans were actually able to raise a division of Ukrainian troops to fight the Red Army. There were so many people that were willing to pick up arms to throw out the Soviets. And the Russian invasion of Ukraine today has stoked Ukrainian nationalism in a big way. If they weren't a nation before, they are now. And they certainly were a nation before, but they are united in their resolution to eject the foreign invaders from their country. In Putin's view, and he said, and this is from a speech he gave around 2004 or so, the dissolution of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century, a genuine tragedy that left millions of ethnic Russians outside of Russian territory, a stretch, and this, he's calling this the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century, completely ignoring World War I and World War II and what they wrought on the European continent. But he was a Soviet KGB agent, and to him, the dissolution of the Soviet Union was a person. Bill's iPhone is very noisy. Was a genuine tragedy for him personally, and he believes for the Soviet Union as well. And so his desire is to recreate the Soviet Union, enlarge Russia to subsume the Russian-speaking peoples of the near abroad, those Soviet socialist republics which became independent in 1991 with the dissolution of the Commonwealth of Independent States. Ukraine is part of this. In 1994, they were one of the great nuclear powers on the planet, and we convinced them to give up their nuclear weapons. 1,900 nuclear warheads that were surrendered for pledges signed in the Budapest Memorandum by Russia, Great Britain, and the United States, that the independence and sovereignty in the existing borders of Ukraine would be respected, and that those three signatories would refrain from the use of force or the threat of the use of force against that country. Of course, Putin has violated this decree, and that makes it problematic, whatever agreement he might come up with in the future, whether he would abide by it. And the other thing I would point out here is this has been a tragedy for nuclear weapons control and nuclear proliferation, because right now the track record of states that gave up their nuclear programs and subsequently were invaded is 100%. The first was Libya and then Ukraine. So I would not expect any states that have nuclear weapons now to give them up voluntarily, given that track record. And I'm looking at North Korea and potentially a nuclear Iran in that regard. As you can see from the map here, several rounds of NATO enlargement have left Western military forces on the borders of Russia. Literally, in the case of these three up here, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, which the Baltic states, which are on the border of Russia. Poland borders Belarus, and Putin, this was a red line, that NATO was advancing all the way to Russia's borders, and he needed to do something about it, in his view, especially when Ukraine, here in yellow, and Georgia, down here in the Caucasus, both expressed a desire to join NATO. And although NATO didn't give them a membership action plan, which would have put them on the road to joining NATO, they did say that they would be welcomed to submit applications at a future date. And this was a non-starter for Putin. So to forestall further expansion of the alliance, Putin invaded Georgia in 2008. He seized Crimea and annexed it in 2014. And he supported separatists in the Donbass region of Ukraine here in the east in that same year. And what this did is it created frozen conflicts that would preclude NATO from embracing Georgia and Ukraine as allies. NATO has never enlarged and never taken a new member that had outstanding foreign policy issues. So, for instance, Romania had to solve its border disputes with Hungary before it was admitted to NATO. And by creating these conflicts that wouldn't go away, Putin ensured that those nations wouldn't become part of NATO. But that wasn't good enough for him. Putin's major demand is that NATO not expand further, especially into Ukraine, and he wants that in writing. He's now invaded Ukraine to create a government there that is subservient to Moscow, that is a friendly and pliable proxy state that would be supportive of Moscow's foreign policy and a junior partner to Russia in all that it wants to do in Europe and globally. What Putin really wants is a new architecture for the security of Europe. He doesn't want NATO to be the arbiter of the future of the continent. He wants a buffer zone between Russia and the West. And this is part of Russia's historical consciousness. Russia's been invaded 4 times in the past 2 centuries. 1812 by Napoleon, 1854 by France and Great Britain when they invaded the Crimea during the Crimean War, 1914 and 1941, both by the Germans. And 1941, that war especially was a catastrophe for the Soviet Union. 20 million people killed, huge property damage, and it was in every way a tragedy, but also is one of the great moments in Soviet and therefore Russian history. Putin looks upon this moment as the high point of Russian history, and he wants to sort of recreate that feeling of Russian superpower that made it all the way to Berlin. By the way, when Stalin was asked if he was satisfied having the Red Army take Berlin, he looked at the questioner and he said, Tsar Alexander made it to Paris, which he did in 1815. Putin, parenthetically, thought the United States would withdraw from NATO if President Trump was reelected to office. And when Trump was defeated by Joe Biden, that election changed his calculus. And that's part of the reason why he then planned an invasion of Ukraine, knowing that NATO would not break up and give him what he wanted in the first place. This picture is just emblematic of where Putin is. He is isolated. He's surrounded by sycophants. And why is he 20 feet away from them? It's not because he's afraid of COVID. It's because he's afraid of being assassinated in the same way that he has killed a number of dissidents with polonium or other poisons that could be uncapped and wafted through the air in his direction. So he is every bit still the KGB agent, and he is terrified of assassination. And the people around him are afraid to tell him what's actually going on. And the result is that his plan for the invasion of Ukraine was a catastrophe from the very start. Now, there's a couple of military philosophers that professors of military history always have to quote. And I'll begin with Sun Tzu, who Chinese military philosopher who wrote this. You can see it on your screen there. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Well, Putin failed both tests. He was misinformed about the quality of his own armed forces, which we'll get to in a second. And he seriously underestimated the potential for Ukrainian resistance. And this gets us to the second quote by Karl von Clausewitz, the Prussian military philosopher, wrote the seminal book on warfare, On War. And he writes this: the most far-reaching act of judgment that the statesman and commander have to make is to establish the kind of war on which they are embarking, neither mistaking it for nor trying to turn it into something that is alien to its nature. So Putin expected that this would be a war of liberation. He was told that the Ukrainians would welcome Russian forces, that all they had to do was road march to Kyiv, topple the government, and that the Ukrainians were ready to put in a Russian-friendly government in their place. This is why the Russian army wasn't prepared to fight. They didn't think they'd have to. And when they were stunned by the level of Ukrainian resistance, they didn't know what to do. Nothing has gone right. Astonishingly, as if they had no military experience in the area, given their experience in World War II, the Russians attacked during the middle of what they call the Rasputitsa, the mud period, which occurs in the spring and the fall for a couple months at a time, that turns the ground into a sea of mud and makes it relatively impassable for armored vehicles. This is why you saw that 40-mile-long convoy on a paved road north of Kyiv. They couldn't maneuver off-road. And when they tried to, they got stuck, and then the Ukrainian farmers would come with their tractors and tow vehicles away like war trophies. The Russian military, though, beyond this, has proven itself inept. It just cannot do the blocking and tackling of military operations that we expect of our armed forces. They can't execute combined arms operation. So you see these videos of armored columns coming down the road, no infantry support, no overhead cover, no artillery fire, no smoke. They just are blindly walking into ambushes. Russia can't keep its forces supplied. Its soldiers' morale is super low. There's indications that they're sabotaging their own equipment and walking away from the battle. And Russia, given its air force, which is seemingly powerful, has failed to gain and maintain air superiority over the skies of Ukraine. The chances of the Russian army taking Kyiv or Kharkiv are about zero, in my estimation. Kyiv is about the same size and population as Stalingrad in World War II, with a population there and military forces that are every bit as willing to sacrifice for their city as the Russians were, the Soviets were in Stalingrad in 1942. So I don't think it's going to happen. And you can see now the Russians are starting to withdraw some forces from Kyiv. They'll continue to batter the city with artillery and missiles, but I don't think they're going to try to take it. What they're going to focus on here is down south. You can see where my cursor is, this town of Mariupol, which is the Alamo for the Ukrainians. And I think that's a pretty good analogy, because I think Mariupol, as staunch as its defense has been, it will eventually fall to the Russian forces. And that will create a land bridge between the Donbass region in the east and the Crimea in the south. And now the Russians will have land corridors where they can link up these two areas, and expect them in any negotiations to come to demand Luhansk and Donetsk, the Donbass region, and the area that connects those regions with Crimea. I doubt that the Ukrainians are going to accept that kind of territorial compromise, but we'll see. So how will the Russians force the Ukrainians to agree to their terms? Well, they're going to take a page out of their Syria playbook, and they're going to start to reduce Ukrainian cities to rubble. They're going to turn them into dust. They don't care how many civilian casualties they create. They want to inflict enough pain to force Zelensky to give in. This is why Zelensky has said that any agreement has to be put to a referendum of the Ukrainian people, because they will back him in holding firm against these sort of maximalist Russian demands. Now, a complete subjugation of Ukraine is beyond the capability of Russia. In Iraq, where I served with General Petraeus during the surge, at the end of the surge, we had about 600,000 security forces to stabilize a nation of about 28 million people. That was 180,000 coalition troops, 320,000 Iraqi army and police, and about 100,000 Sons of Iraq, local militia forces. Russia has about 200,000 troops, so about 1/3 of the number we had, in a country that's larger and more populous, 43 million Ukrainians versus only 28 million Iraqis. Maybe that's down to 39 million because 4 million people have fled into Eastern Europe. But the bottom line is that Russia doesn't have enough forces to conquer Ukraine or to occupy it should it be successful in taking the entire country. The Ukrainians will merely revert to guerrilla warfare and combine that with their conventional forces and create a hybrid conflict that will be impossible for the Russians to win. Furthermore, in Iraq, we had we were fighting maybe 20% at most of the Iraqi population that didn't like the fact that we deposed Saddam Hussein. 87% of the Ukrainians in a recent poll believe that they will win this war against Russia. And so you're now fighting 87% at least of a 43 million strong population. And you can see how hard that's going to be for Russia. So Putin severely miscalculated when he rolled the iron dice here. Now, what's been the reaction of the West? Well, Putin wanted to make Russia great again with his invasion, but instead he made NATO essential again. This has really energized NATO and has made even Finland and Sweden consider joining the alliance. Oh, by the way, Switzerland has condemned the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And when you piss off the Swiss, you know you're doing something wrong in terms of what you've done diplomatically. So Putin is diplomatically isolated. He's been made into a pariah. Germany has taken the step of canceling the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, which would have bypassed the gas pipelines from Russia going through Ukraine into Eastern Europe. The West has imposed economic sanctions, except for oil and gas, with the exception of the United States. We did impose that, but it didn't hurt us to do that. Europe is dependent on Russian oil and gas, and it's going to take a few years for them to wean themselves off of that source of supply, which I think they now will try to do. So in the long run, this is going to work to Putin's detriment and to Russia's detriment, and they're going to lose their best customer for their hydrocarbons. In the meantime, the Russian economy is going into the tank, and the Russian people will be the ones that suffer. But economic sanctions cannot reverse facts on the ground. We've tried them many, many times. We drove Iraq's economy into the ground. It didn't change Saddam Hussein's calculation vis-a-vis the no-fly zones and so forth. So I don't believe that the sanctions are going to work in forcing Putin's hand, but other things might, such as the weapons we've provided to Ukraine, the Stingers, and you can see a Stinger there in the upper right, the Javelins. That's not a Javelin in the lower left. That's actually a European next generation anti-armor weapon, which they're providing to the Ukrainians. And Germany is rearming. You've also known you've done something wrong when Germany, one of the most pacifistic nations in Europe, decides that they're going to up their defense budget by 100 billion euros and get it to 2% of their gross domestic product. But having said that, the war right now is in stalemate. Putin is unlikely to give up until all of his options have been exhausted. And one of these may be a decision to escalate in order to de-escalate, in order to use, say, chemical weapons, maybe even a nuclear weapon launched on Lviv, a Ukrainian city. And when he does that, he'll say, okay, you want more of this, or you want to come to terms now? And this is something that NATO and Washington had best be wargaming now, because if it happens, we can't deliberate on what our reaction is going to be, because it will be a game changer for the world. I'll just leave you with this. When I graduated from West Point in 1982, I chose armor as my branch, combat arm of decision. I remember getting the saber. I remember getting the saber from the armor branch representative. I still have it, and it's a prize that holds an honored place in my house. But the number 1, 3, and 5 graduates in my class, number 3 was Kurt King, number 5 Tom Lynch. We all went armor. 3 of the top 5, because we fully expected to fight the Red Army in Europe. And the next generation of cadets may be going down the same path. So for those of you at the academy listening, you could do a lot worse than go armor, and I think you can't do better. It's a great branch, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with armor and armored cavalry units, both in peace and in war. I will leave you with one thought.
Thank you, Pete. We have a brief session for Q&A. The issues we're going to run into taps with our cadets. East Coast time, right? Does anybody have a question that they would like to ask? Pete. Ask Pete. Any questions from the audience? I see one.
Hi, can you tell me why the ruble is worth more now than it was prior to the invasion? Is it just because of the inflation that he placed?
Someone look that up, because I didn't think the ruble I thought it had cratered. And it had risen a little bit from its low, but it hasn't gone back to pre-war levels. So if it has, that's news to me. You got smartphones there. Someone look that up. But I think it's down from pre-war levels significantly. One of the things that the Russians wanted, for instance, was to sell their oil and gas and demand rubles in return, and Europe wouldn't do it. They said, nope, it's going to be transactions in dollars. Russia wanted those transactions in rubles because its value dropped.
I see a question. It's from the Navy guy. I hope it's not about the last slide. Yeah, because I don't know. Pete, can you see he has an unauthorized accoutrement on his outside here? You know.
I can't see it, but that's
yeah. It says beat Army. Why we allowed him through the door with that? I was not at the door. I would not. Anyway.
So if we had more time, I'd tell you some great stories, because I was an exchange cadet in 5th Company at the Naval Academy in the fall of 1980. It's great times.
Thank you so much, Doctor. What do you think might happen to Putin? Do you think he might get assassinated? His generals might turn on him, or what would you say might happen there, please?
Yeah, well, he is, he's a wily ex-KGB agent, and he has coup-proofed his administration. He is very aware that assassination is possibly in the cards, and it's going to be hard to get to him. So I don't think he will be assassinated. Stalin, for all of his mass murder of Russians, ended up dying peacefully in his sleep or collapsing of a heart attack in his office. So, it's nice to think that regime change could solve this, because this is really a war that's been promulgated by one person. But I wouldn't put our hopes into it.
We have one more. And only have to cut it off because we have to get the cadet.
Thanks, Pete. Select few, 82. So
Best of the core, 84.
No. All right. So, anyways, we've seen reports that the Ukrainians have had some success with counteroffensive. It doesn't seem like it's a lot, but the bottom line is it does appear to be there. Can you talk to that at all?
Yeah, they've taken some ground back around Kyiv, but they don't have really offensive striking power. This is one of the things that Zelensky wants. He wants tanks, he wants aircraft, he wants weapons that can allow him to launch larger and more sophisticated counteroffensives. The sort of infantry forces that Ukraine has, they'll be good for these local counterattacks, but I doubt that they'll be able to eject the Russian army from all of the ground that they've taken. But it is good that they've been pushing them back from Kyiv, although not yet out of artillery range, which would be obviously the goal of those offensives. But yeah, good news. It shows that Ukrainian army is willing to fight and that it's fairly well led and actually conducting better, more sophisticated combined arms operations than the Russian army.
Jerry Werner, 64. My question is, if the Russians seem to be changing their tactic to one of just destroy everything that they can, like Grozny and other places, isn't that then kind of a victory because they just pretty much destroyed the country? It's infrastructure, it's buildings, a way of life, etc. So they've got plenty of time then to rebuild their army and come back again.
Exactly. This is what they're going to try to do. This is what they've done historically in Grozny, as you mentioned, in Chechnya, in Syria as well, and it doesn't require them to put a lot of troops at risk. You just launch artillery and missiles at these cities, slowly grind them into dust. I think the Russian commanders will learn from their mistakes. This is going to be a long war. I don't think it's going to be over anytime soon because I don't think there will be any diplomatic settlement to it. And both sides will continue to try to achieve their objectives on the battlefield rather than giving in to the other side's maximalist demands, which, for Ukraine, for instance, they simply aren't going to give up large portions of their territory to the Russians, and Putin thinks he can win in the long haul. The wild card here is will Russia's economy collapse before Ukraine is destroyed? And that remains to be seen.
Pete, thank you, my friend, my XO, my officer for life, and that there's a bottle sitting in my cellar, so when you come through town, we'll celebrate. So, and Pete will be around here, so hopefully we'll see him at much more events. He's a great conversationalist. I forgot to also mention he has a master's in strategic study from the War College. Gives you a sense of his background. Well done, my friend. Well done. Please.
Thanks, Tim. And thanks to all of you. By the way, Tim, late May, early June. We're coming back.
Thank you, Pete. And with that, we're going to try to switch over to the cadets if they didn't get in trouble for taps. I see Eric is there. Sam is there. Perfect. I see Eric's. There's Eric. And I'm going to give. Oh, you take it. What? I don't have any questions. I asked you to do questions.
Okay, Eric. Sorry to keep you guys up. When was taps? Do you have?
Oh, you still have 22 minutes, sir. We have time.
Okay. Okay. Joanna says she went to bed. Sam, how are you? How you doing? Get any studying done tonight?
I'm working on a problem set right now.
Sorry about that. We meant to get you a little earlier. Appreciate it. So, what companies? Tell us about yourself, Sam. And first, do that last one.
Okay, I'll go first. So, I am a cow right now at West Point. I am in company D2, and I am on the USMA crew team as their XO. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I am an operations research major, so I'm part of the math department. Yeah, it's about me.
So your dad's got a question.
Oh, geez.
I don't have a. Are you tired?
Maybe.
I'm sorry because clearly you're going to graduate. So you're amazing. We're so proud of you. We really are. We love you. It's so good to see your face.
Yeah. So we thank you guys for hanging. So Eric, we just had breakfast. It seems like the other day.
Seems like it.
That's good. Is it like the mess hall?
Oh God, much better.
So tell us about what you're doing. I understand you're doing pretty good in academics these days.
I'm trying. Thank you, sir. My name's Eric, obviously from Reno. I actually went to high school with Sam for a couple of years, and I'm in company H1, a plebe, kind of learning H1, read or die. Trying to learn how to, survive in this place and how to thrive. My selected major is electrical engineering, so we'll see how that goes. Haven't gotten into any major specific courses yet.
So Eric, what are you doing this summer? Then I'm going to ask Sam the same thing. What are you doing this summer?
So I have CFT 1, which is the earlier CFT, only 3 weeks. And then I have about a week break, and then I'll head off to airborne school at Benning. So.
Good job. Good job. Sam, what are you doing this summer?
This summer, I'm doing CTLT and CLDT. I'm doing CTLT at Fort Benning with Armor, and then CLDT.
Armor, huh? You want to go Armor branch?
Not really.
So both you guys, what branches are you leaning to? Sam, you first. I like those crosshairs.
Oh, thank you. I either want to branch aviation or field artillery.
Or aviation or
if aviation doesn't work, so hopefully it does.
Okay. Eric, so you as a fourth classman, they start talking about branch right away. What are you looking at?
A little bit. So for us, our EAMS was not working, so we actually didn't get to put our branch preferences in. So that's kind of going to be another delayed thing. But as for branches that I'm looking at right now, probably military intelligence or cyber.
Okay. I'm going to, cyber's actually, you have that new cyber academy. So I'm going to let your dad and mom just say hi to you, and then we'll finish up with them.
Hi, I'm not going to ask you any questions. I already know.
Oh, thank goodness.
I love you.
Love you too, Mom.
Let me finish one last thing before we start. I'll put it up here. Our next event is on 5 June, and it's at Sam's parents' home. It's beautiful. We did it the second picnic there. We want all branches, everybody to go. I've got your son's, like in my garage, your son's like second lieutenant yard signs there. So I meant to bring it tonight. So I've got his son's yard sign in my garage. So we hand out yard signs to the second lieutenants and the ensigns. And unfortunately, there's too many ensigns last year. They outnumber us. They have a bunch of ensigns coming up this year too. And we hand them to the new appointees. It's a lot of fun. The DeRusses have a beautiful house. What's the address? Urban. I know how to get there. And if you go to Use Upon, it'll be on our website and the Use Upon. But please invite everybody and invite candidates, people who think about going. And it's free for students, and it's a $5 contribution for everybody else. It's a wonderful meal. And maybe we'll get some chili too. So I'm going to hand that over to Tim.
Sam, Eric, thank you much. It's great to have the connect with you. I can remember when it looked like your room was a lot more comfortable looking than mine ever was. But that's all right. You guys are doing even greater things and have a more modern warfare to fight than we did. So keep up the spirits. We're always back here behind you. Need anything, reach out to us. And look forward to seeing you guys when you're in town and doing stuff. And I know your parents really looking forward to seeing you. So good night and good luck to you all.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Part of Bill was giving the plug for all the academies because he's also the president of the United States Service Academy Parents Organization of Northern Nevada. Use Upon, if you spell it all out. He's what? Oh, he's apparently the West Point rep, the sub rep within that organization. Congratulations on your stepping up tonight. So we have a couple of videos that will finish off kind of our formal presentation tonight. A couple of things we didn't have put because they talked me out of it. Tablecloths on the tables because you'll know that each of them is unique art by a local artist. And so they said they spent a lot of time and money to do it. So I hope you appreciate that. It's just kind of a different take on it. And so it's like, makes more sense than a piece of white cloth that we would dirty up anyway. Is to appreciate what was done. The other thing is that we have added, as you can see, a lot of streamers every year that we've been a society. We've been a distinguished society award, And Larry, I know you didn't see the ribbons. I had the 20 and 2021 ribbons, which is a lot of work. And I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Bill. They crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's, checked all the boxes, and reminded us when we needed to do things to get it done. And so they got us there. And it's a great accolade for us because we're hitting way above our weight. And we do the same thing. Ann Davis couldn't join us today. She is our rep that does field force, and I know she works. Carol, we have been putting a lot of cadets through nominations from Nevada, and they expected we might get 1 point something. We've been averaging just about 3. This year's a little bit for 2 something. We might get to 3, which is amazing for our area. So well done. Thank you, Carol. Ann, who is not here tonight, who does a great job of getting to all the, she's class of 82.
Coming to you from Hartford Hall, the Great Hall.
Well, this is the automated virtual version that was provided to us by AOG. The one thing I wanted to do on there is that there's the soups portion, 39 minutes, 58 seconds, something like that. I think, if I remember right. No, 39 minutes, 58, you're 37. That's close enough. And this is the soup's message to all the cadets for Founders Day, so please enjoy.
Hello, and happy Founders Day. I'm honored to join you and thousands of fellow graduates around the globe as we come together in fellowship, grip hands, and celebrate the strength, the resiliency, and the timelessness of the long gray line. And as we do every Founders Day, we come together to celebrate the strength of our alma mater, the enduring purpose, and our honored duty that has guided this academy for 220 years. Preparing the leaders of character to build and lead cohesive teams of soldiers, our Army's greatest strength, who are ready to fight and win in the 21st century crucible of ground combat. Guided by the Army's people-first mentality and winning matters attitude, and in support of the Secretary of the Army's objectives, we continue to educate, train, and inspire the next generation of officers who live and lead honorably by Army values and the ideals of our academy: duty, honor, and country. The Corps is as tough, motivated, and resilient as ever, demonstrating excellence across all aspects of the Corps' leader development experience. After graduating the class of 2021 in front of family and friends at a traditional ceremony at Michie Stadium, we immediately transitioned to cadet summer training, where the Corps developed the warrior leadership and team-building skills necessary to lead, fight, and win on a complex, multi-domain battlefield. We brought back one component of cadet basic training that many of you will recognize from your own cadet days, and that's the week-long encampment at Lake Frederick. New cadets marched out, encamped in the familiar tent city by the lake, and of course, completed the traditional march back to West Point, accompanied by many of you. Throughout that week, new cadets were challenged and inspired through various training events, such as the leader reaction course, mountaineering skills, bugle stick training, and a crucible event modeled after the Army Infantry School's first 100 yards. This tough, robust summer training set the stage for a strong transition to the academic year, where the Corps carried their energy, motivation, and grit from the summer into the fall semester. Their energy and resiliency, coupled with our continued discipline in mitigating COVID, allowed us to execute many in-person events, honoring our past, celebrating our future, winning on the fields of friendly strife, and relentlessly pursuing excellence in the field and in the classroom. As an example of academic excellence, I'm pleased to announce that 4 West Point cadets were among the 32 nationally selected Rhodes Scholars for 2022, with 3 more cadets selected as 2022 Marshall Scholars. This marks West Point's best year ever, with the most combined Rhodes and Marshall Scholars, another source of intellectual capital for the Army, as these scholars will use their advanced education and research to help the Army solve some of its biggest challenges. However, the most important thing we teach here is character development. Aligned with Army initiatives, we continue to emphasize a culture of character growth, where character development and education begins on day one for the Corps and is woven throughout all aspects of their leader development experience. We strive to teach cadets the importance of building trust and treating people with dignity and respect, so they will become leaders who will build cohesive and winning teams, who will build positive command climates within their formations, and it will reduce the harmful behaviors in our Army. As Secretary Warmuth recently stated, this will ultimately result in a strong, healthy, resilient, and trained force. That is the most important indicator of Army readiness. And the Army continues to invest in modernizing the Academy to enable us to prepare our graduates for the future multi-domain battlefield. Progress continues on the future Cyber and Engineering Academic Center. We've begun renovations on Cullum Hall and the West Point Military Complex at Camp Buckner. And we're on track to complete renovation of Bradley Barracks this summer and begin assembly of the Patton Swing facility, which will set conditions for the longer-term renovations of our academic buildings. The Corps and the entire West Point team are committed to excellence. They're doing the right things the right way every day, and you can be proud of all their accomplishments, just as you can be proud of the incredible things our graduates are doing throughout the operational line. But we couldn't do it without our dedicated alumni. Through your support of the various Margin of Excellence programs, you help sustain our preeminence and ensure we continue to be the gold standard for leader development. Leaders who live honorably, lead honorably, and demonstrate excellence. And by sharing the West Point and the Army story in your communities, you help us identify and recruit America's best and brightest, who have the desire to serve. One of the Secretary of the Army's objectives is to strategically adapt the way we recruit and retain talent to sustain the all-volunteer force. And to that end, we need to reach out to all Americans from all backgrounds, talents, and geographies and tell the Army story in new and creative ways to give them many reasons to come in and then stay in. Your efforts are crucial to that end. So, thank you for your continued support, for your passion for your alma mater, and most importantly, thank you for continuing to grip hands with today's cadets who stand on your shoulders and will carry your legacy forward to pass along to future generations of leaders. Happy Founders Day, and go Army, beat Navy.
Did you hear that, Steve? Did you hear that? Yeah, I hear it. I liked everything in the video I saw, except for that shot at Lake Frederick. I don't know if those were space modules, because that did not look like two shelter halves put together with 3 sticks and a bunch of string. That, of course, leaked when it rained. So we're going to wrap up kind of the formal portion. I didn't ask Cindy how late the bar, if you wanted to get a drink on the way out. There's additional food. I hope you like this ceremony that we had this year. Look for the Survey Monkey of things that you'd like to see, pluses and minuses. Again, we're kind of working a little bit in the dark here, coming back from COVID, doing things again. But the one thing is clear, we all have a great passion for our alma mater. We all have memories nightmares we want to forget, memories that we want to relive all the time, things we wish we had done differently. But at the end of the day, we can be proud of where we came, and we can be proud of the long gray line. I should probably say stand.